Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, you should,
what?
as long as he can hear it.
Like that?
Okay, yeah. Two speakers before you come up because you could hear the feedback. The two speakers on the right, all the way on the right, there are 4 in a row.
Hey, I'm coming up.
Hi, this is Paula, Gloria, and this show is called Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. On this particular show, I want to give the viewer an insight into what public access is, and in particular, what Manhattan Neighborhood Network is. Because I've been on YouTube now, I have, at this point, almost 600 subscribers. Some of them are from many parts of the world. But even in different parts of the United States, there's not that much understanding of what public access television is and what and its importance to the community. So we have just finished a couple hours of shooting some very provocative material, and it had to do with the TV fakery on 9/11. Now, this show is not about that topic, but what I want to say is I feel like public access here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network is like a family. I simply could not have produced this show or even dreamed of having a show like it without the people that were joining me on the panel and were in the control room. So on this show, I'm going to be joined by Gloria Messer, who's had a public access show for a long time, and she has helped other people produce shows. Thank you, Gloria, for joining me in front of the camera. Thanks. And also Josh Volinski. And Josh, I have had the honor of sort of encouraging to get his public access show because of the wealth of information he had being a New Yorker for so long.
Yes.
Thank you, Josh, for joining me.
Well, I've been having a lot of fun and a lot of experience, and the best days are yet to come.
Yes, absolutely. And Gloria, on the last shows, you were behind in the control room. What is the experience like for you producing other people's shows, helping other people produce their shows?
I enjoy being behind the scenes much more than I do being in front of the camera. I like being busy, and I like touching things, and I like making things work. And I enjoy when it looks right, and it sounds right, and it comes out right.
Now, I know because I listened to your interview with Harold Channer, you know, you're a successful person in the world. You know, you've had a lot of different experiences. What got you interested in doing volunteer work at public access?
Well, first of all, how do you define success? One of the reasons I feel I'm successful now is because I am basically happy with myself. And
that's successful.
That is successful. I had my own business. I did a lot of stuff. I had money. I don't have any now, but I still feel successful. And as long as you can do what you enjoy and you feel true to yourself, and you never have to lie, you never have to make any excuses, that is successful. You're free.
Right.
And I like what I'm doing. When I stop working, I look for a long time for something to do. I'm going through this again. And I ended up doing this. And I like helping people. It gives me a great deal of pleasure. And a lot of people should know that you can get pleasure. You feel good when you help people. You don't necessarily have to get something in return. Whatever you get when you help someone else is enough. You should really treasure that feeling. That is what makes you feel good.
Did your parents bring you up to understand this? Because that's deep.
My parents came from Warsaw. They came before the Holocaust. They came after the First World War. And my parents, in retrospect, I was very angry when I was growing up, but in retrospect, I realized that they probably kept to themselves because they must have faced some sort of persecution.
Because they were Jewish.
Probably, when they were growing up, which gets to what's happening today, because I feel that today we are exactly in the same place in the world. It's not just the United States, as we were, as the world was before the Holocaust, before the World War II, because people were afraid then, people are afraid now.
When you mean people or Jews? When you say
all
we,
people are
all
afraid
people.
because it isn't only Jews. And I don't know why people keep saying Jews, because all of us should be afraid.
Right.
Because our freedom of speech is going, our rights are going, the Constitution
I
is
understand
going.
that, but I just want to be clear on your story. You said that your parents were persecuted in Warsaw.
I said I don't know.
You're guessing.
I am guessing.
Right.
Because that is why they kept to themselves.
Do you think more than your friends' parents?
Yes, absolutely.
And was that painful for you as a child?
I didn't understand it.
You wanted them to be more outward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate
But
to
I
that.
understand it now because it's happening right now.
Right.
And people today are afraid to speak their mind.
Right.
They're afraid to say what they think, or they say what they think people want them to say.
But in your family, you could speak your mind, right?
I could speak my mind, but they didn't necessarily understand me because I didn't feel the same way.
But you still must have come from a family where they encouraged you to think for yourself.
Oh yes, I was encouraged to think for myself and to take care of myself.
Right.
I had to.
Right. Josh, do you have anything to say about that?
Well,
Talking about
it
your
makes
background?
me feel bad to hear Gloria say that things are about as bad as they could be or they were, because I do know what she says is accurate. By speaking to many of my peers and people of our generation, and we spend a great deal of time discussing how we can be diplomatic and kind to children and grandchildren without really alarming them to know that the world is in very bad straits now. We have very, very bad leadership, deplorable leadership. I mean, Bush is just the tip of the iceberg, and he's not even qualified to be an assistant manager in the average Duane Reade. So,
What would your mother say if she was still alive? How were you brought up to tackle these
well,
problems?
you know, you always speak of spiritual values, and my mother was quite spiritual, and she felt it's very important to develop yourself, focus on yourself, and she was a great believer that if you solve your problems, you very probably would solve a lot of the problems around you would fall into perspective. She did believe that. But nowadays, it's very obvious that somebody else's well-being is dependent on your well-being. And we are all dependent on each other, and that the world has gotten to be a much, much smaller place.
What do you mean by that? Somebody else's well-being is dependent
Well,
on yours.
if
Can you give a
somebody-
specific example?
If somebody near you is homeless
Ah, right.
or
okay.
suffering economically, doesn't have health insurance, it's apparent that one way or another, it's going to catch up with you and have an impact on you.
What do you think of that, Gloria?
Well, basically, I feel that we are all dependent on ourselves, and no one can really help anyone else. You must take care of yourself. However, if you are secure with who you are and what you're doing, that does not mean that you cannot help people, because again, by helping other people, that makes you feel like a human being. It makes you feel good. It gives you pleasure. So therefore, you should be helping people because you feel good. And it makes you feel good to make other people
not out
feel
of guilt.
good.
Not out of guilt and out of obligation.
Also, as far as diplomacy, I think people talk too much about what they do and they don't do enough. And as far as that goes, not only to people being nice to each other, people try not to hurt someone's feelings, and they're better off saying exactly what they think. You can couch it in a nicer way, by telling someone something that isn't true just because you want to be liked, or just because you think you're being nice. That's wrong. Because we are being fed all this propaganda right now because they think we're stupid. And the majority, maybe the people are stupid, I don't know. But some of the things that I hear in the news today, I can't believe that anyone doesn't believe them. And why aren't the people today studying history? Why aren't they studying what happened before the Second World War or during the Second World War? Because it's happening exactly the same. All of the things that are happening economically happen exactly the same way. There is nothing different. We're using the exact same tools they used before the Second World War. And everyone talks about Germany. It wasn't only Germany. It was the world it was a world war. And everybody talks about the Jews. There weren't only Jews in those concentration camps. There were many other people. There were millions of other people. Why isn't this brought up? Why do they just make it seem? Well, they're using them as a scapegoat and they're doing it again.
Who do you think the they is, Josh?
I think
for you?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Gloria has made some very, very good points, some salient points. However, when you see a situation like Mr. Cho that happened last year, with this young man who had serious problems, got some weapons, went on the Virginia Tech campus,
the Blacksburg massacre,
and gunned down 33 people. He is that's an example of what happens when, not only when you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but also when somebody who is seriously ill and his problems are not dealt with can affect us and many innocent people. And this is repetitious in our society. So in
who
a
do you
sense,
think the they is, though? Who do you think the they is? Who put these gunmen? Or was it just a crazy guy? He comes out of nowhere?
We're our brother's keeper. And I think one of the reasons society malfunctions, I mean, we did much better when we had a society that was based on the extended family and on a tribal system where everybody's business was everyone's business. And now we delegate it to some agency. We don't know how it's financed. We don't know how it's administered. And therefore we can walk through our streets and step over the homeless, which many of us do, without, and this is awful.
Why do you think,
tragedy.
Gloria, who's the they
I
and
think
why do we
right
step
now,
over someone homeless?
what happened is during the 60s we had the baby boomers who did all the marching, who were really for civil rights and for other people. They've grown up. They went to college. They were inundated with teachings on greed, think of yourself. And today, these are the people who are running the country. And today, you have all of these people who are only interested in money. They're thought the only thing that's valuable is money. They think of yourself and think of making money, and that's it. I mean, you have Wall Street. Right now you have, which is a joke. I'm reading a book called King of the Club, which is about Grasso, Richard Grasso, and the New York Stock Exchange. And basically what the New York Stock Exchange is just what we used to call a numbers racket when I was growing up. These people make people pay to join the stock exchange, and they join the stock exchange, and they're just gambling. And right now it's collapsed. Every single company that was a part of the stock exchange, almost every one, if you read the papers, their chief executives are being let go. The chief executive is not the problem. It's the laws and regulation that this administration did away with, that were put into effect after the Second World War to stop this from happening. And because this happened, and of course they removed the laws, and it happened again. So now someone has to be brave enough or strong enough to get back in there and fight the corporations, because corporatism is fascism. And we have a government for the corporations and for the greedy. We do not have a government for the people anymore, and we need a government for the people.
Well, I'm just proposing that perhaps we're all a reflection of a system that, like, I asked you who's they, or I asked Josh who was the they that you were talking about.
We're talking about the wealthy,
and then,
the people who stole money from the market. They stole money from the public, from the middle class. They took the money out of pension funds. When you see a CEO take millions of dollars and put it in his pocket, how did he get those millions of dollars? He fired 1 million people to get their salaries. That's what he's putting in the pocket.
Was he conscious that he fired 1 million people
Of
to get
course
the
he-
salaries?
Yes, of course he was.
Because
absolutely conscious of it.
Okay, because this is what I'm going to be talking to Robert Ashford with Binary Economics, that Louis Kelso realized that capital could pay for itself based on future earnings.
I don't know
now, no, but it's okay. But it led to the leverage buyout. What his intention was.
No, the leverage buyout is just an excuse. It's the numbers market. They used to call them bookies when I was a kid. They used to have back markets. They would take people, and if they didn't pay their debts, which they couldn't pay, first of all, people are being charged exorbitant interest rates, and they can't pay it. What do they do if they can't pay? They charge them more money. Does this make sense to you? If you can't pay, why are you charging someone more money?
No, I'm just looking for a place where they can become us and we don't feel like victims, because you are describing...
No, they are greedy. Greed, this is the end result of greed.
Yeah,
Okay.
These people have no redeeming,
Okay. Now,
I
nothing
hear what
redeeming
both
at
of you
all.
are saying, and both of you are really touching upon many realistic ideas. But I also hear Paula, when she says they, she is trying to communicate that there are many, many human beings among all of us in all capacities. In fact, the other day I went over to the Olympic Flame restaurant, and it was Hanukkah, that's when it was. And one of these developers was eating supper, and he saw me eat a modest supper. And he said, how come such a big guy like you is eating such a modest supper? I told him I can't afford the higher, the meals in the higher
expensive.
bracket. So he came over to me. He said, let me give you no, I didn't know this man from Adam. I still don't quite know who he is. He says, let me give you a Hanukkah present. He figured out. And here he went ahead. Of course, I protested. Didn't do me any good. The man said, look, I'm putting up all these buildings around here. I have enough money. Let me buy you supper. And then to boot, he gave me a Hanukkah present, a nice one. So it brought me, I mean, I knew this before. There are many fine people in all walks of life. And I said to Jimmy, the owner of the Olympic Flame, who is this man? He said, he's a developer. He's a very generous man. And he feels you can't take it with you. And he wants to share it with everyone. I also went to the real estate exposition at the Javits Center, and these big guys were saying the same thing. So there are many, we're all human beings and so on. So I think if we feel we use the term, they are failing ourselves, we should really re-examine what we are doing and how we can improve the system. Because there are really many human beings among all of us who really mean well and are maybe caught up in a bad system or in a system that's inadequate in really meeting the needs of the entire planet. But there are good people in every position.
Gloria?
Well, first of all, I think that people like this gentleman, thank God there are a few like him, who felt guilty and gave something back. But this is something he should be doing. Just remember that what this gentleman did is he took your money. He got a banker to give him your money. He didn't put his money up. He didn't work for it. He went to the bank, borrowed money, paid the banker, absorb it in an interest, excuse me, and then made money on the money that he took from you or your Social Security, your pension, because this is what's in play. That is not money that they earned. They borrowed. They borrowed this money. They were given the money. And why were they given it? Because the bankers make money on it. So they take your money and they charge them interest.
I think Josh is aware of that, but I think he was saying for that moment, it was a nice experience. But I agree with you, Gloria.
No, I agree. I did say, thank God there are people like him, that some of them at some point have some sort of feeling or some sort of guilt for what they are doing. But they should have a lot more.
But Marshall Rosenberg always says that one of the deepest human needs is a need to contribute.
Who is
Marshall Rosenberg is a great inspiration to me. He developed nonviolent communication.
Okay.
And he felt that all human beings have feelings and needs, and if they understood those feelings and needs and they didn't put labels and demonize each other, they would resolve their differences.
Yes, it's true. I told you, you feel good when you give. But today, because of the education system that we have, where think of yourself, that is drummed into people's head. Think of yourself. How many times when I want to do something, someone says, why do you care about them?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think of yourself. You can't just think of yourself, because just like anything, that's how the war started. Everybody's thinking of themselves. We have a war. We have a world war going on, and we're all thinking of ourselves, and no one wants to stop it. And the next thing you know, they'll be here just as they were in Sarajevo, in Germany, here in the streets of the city.
No, you are one of the most productive people in terms of supporting other people's shows. So you really know of what you talk about.
Because it makes me feel good.
I realize.
Only for that reason.
No, I realize that. But you also are saying that by taking care of yourself first, knowing who you are and having confidence from where you're coming from, then you have the capacity to be generous, because it is a generosity.
No. Taking care of yourself means that you realize that you don't need all of this materialistic stuff that you thought you needed to make you happy, that you didn't have to go out and keep spending money, because I went through that. I did that.
Right.
and
Me
being
too.
satisfied with what you have.
Right.
So therefore, taking care of yourself, we don't need all this stuff that
Right.
everybody is fighting to acquire.
Right.
How much can you have? How much can you eat? And why does one person have to spend thousands of dollars on a meal entertaining each other when that money can go to someone, they can share it,
Right.
and
Well,
they can bring everybody up equal.
Right. Well, we're coming to the conclusion of the show, and I want to thank both of you for joining me on this exploration, because I think if people are spending thousands of dollars on a meal, they're essentially looking for the same thing that those who don't have that much. We're all human beings looking to find the meaning of life. And for me, having the money when I did was a strategy to achieve happiness. But I must say, the happiness that I'm achieving now, just by working together with people like you, and finally through YouTube I can get feedback from the viewers, we are coming together, I feel, or there are moments where it is beyond money. Like you and Harold are always saying, it's not about money. So thank you for
Well,
joining me. This is Paula Gloria, and this has been an episode of Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. I've been joined by Gloria Messer and by Josh Volinski. We can keep the tapes rolling for YouTube. I just wanted to sign off that 28 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the reason I appreciate nonviolent communication is that I've also practiced violent communication. And that's the way you find out.
What is violent
that,
communication?
Well,
Using labels
you know,
instead of information.
Somebody,
You demonize
somebody,
someone.
yeah.
If you can't be cruel to somebody if you can empathize with their feelings and their needs. So,
Well, basically, we should all treat everyone else as if the way we want to be treated.
right,
And if you do treat someone the way you want to be treated, you're not going to mistreat them. And anyone who
Right.
doesn't
right,
is cruel.
right.
But like I got on a bus and I said to the driver, we're all so cold and you had the nerve to be so late. So that was sort of violent communication. So he said to me, look, I'm the only one who came to work today, and that's how I get treated when I show up.
That's good.
So-
You have natural compassion there. But I think that the people, very wealthy people, are also.
I don't think every single person that has money is that selfish or greedy. I just think that the few people who have used the system, or that they've changed the laws to steal the money, because the baby boomers are retiring this year. Everybody thinks I own a co-op, I own a condo, I have all this money.
And
they
they
have
don't.
pieces of paper, they have paper that's worthless, because every day it's going down today. I mean, I listen to the news, I read the paper, and if I tell this to someone, they look at me like I'm crazy.
No, I know.
Why do you have to worry about that? Why do you think about it? Well, if you don't think about it, they're taking the money.
You know what it is, Gloria? You look much younger than you are, and you've had a lot of experience. That's why I'm saying you're speaking from experience, so other people haven't seen or they haven't analyzed things like you
That's
have.
true, because I don't think it's only now that I understand what happened, because I was born before the war, and I remember the end of the war. I was very young, of course. And now I understand. But it seemed that after a war, people were much more open, much more giving, helping each other. Or maybe I was just too young and didn't really perceive it as it really was. I don't know.
But I think there's always those bright spots of people who will do something and not expect something in return.
Yes, and more people have to realize that if they keep doing this, if they make some effort, it will give them pleasure.
Right.
In
Right.
a way, it's almost like being selfish. You can have pleasure by helping someone else. But why aren't they teaching this instead of you have to make
Well, that's what I'm
money,
curious
money?
about. Where do you learn it? Do you learn it in the family? Do you learn it from your
No.
religion? Do you where do when the people that have that?
They
where
learn
did
it
they
in
get
school. And
You know?
that was our education. That was part of the 70s, 80s, 90s. The education was business. You owe your loyalty to the corporation. Nothing else matters. They are learning it in our education system. Hitler did the same thing. They put children in school and put them in brown shirts. We wanted
Right.
to put them into uniforms too.
I also remember President Roosevelt's New Deal propaganda, where he said by the time we reach 2008, we're going to have a society very much, an ultra-modern society with space travel and transportation that flies right over us, and every school will have its own hospital. Every community will have its own hospital, and schools will all be within walking distance, and everyone will be employed, and we'll all live in luxury housing.
Well, luxury is a word. Every single building that they open, they call luxury. All it is 4 walls around some space. You make it whatever it is. What is luxury? Luxury is just something new. Luxury condominiums, all these glass buildings are going up. They're just new. The thing is, if they're not built well, they will deteriorate very quickly.
Well, I think of luxury as a frame of mind. You feel opulent, you feel secure, you feel generous, you feel you're inspired with the beauty, and then you invite people and you have parties and you share and you exchange ideas, kind of like what we're doing now. This is a luxury to have these cameras and to have Alan Steinfeld switching in the control room.
This should not be a luxury. It should be a right.
Well, that's another
It
topic.
should not be a luxury.
Well, I kind of felt that Harold was saying that we should intensify our feelings of entitlement, that there is abundance available, and we should feel that we deserve it. Not that we don't deserve it and we have to work and slave away for it before we get a pittance of it.
No, you have to take care of yourself. You have to work. A lot of people don't want to work, or some people say,
yeah, I know.
no one will have to work. How many? It's not normal not to be productive. I think if you are not productive, it's depressing.
Right.
And what do you feel like you're giving back to society?
Yeah.
Not to society, that doesn't really matter. What do you feel about yourself? If you don't get up every day and do something and say, hey, I did that. That's...
You know Victor Taplin, right?
Yes.
He was saying that his mom used to say, because they would, in a black family, come on hard times, and she'd say, well, don't do nothing, do something. Don't just do nothing, do something.
Well, too many people are just sitting there and waiting for someone else to take.
On the other hand, I can see what Harold Channer means when he says I'm not an activist, that he wants to make sure before he puts his energy in some direction that the direction is going in a way that's going to find fulfillment. So I think there's a lot to be said for the cerebral consideration of where things are going before you sort of, go racing off to save the world and maybe find that it wasn't such a productive direction. Or maybe you even contributed to the confusion, because in that roll-in that we had 7 minutes, there are elements that he was putting on the table that says maybe a lot of the people who thought they were doing the right thing by reinvestigating 9/11 were actually helping to distract from the critical elements. So I think we need not lazy people, but we need people who kind of have to be convinced to get moving.
Well, we need people who are true to themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
And people who are honest. The thing that this generation or this country or this world today is missing is honesty.
Hallelujah. That says it all. That says it all. If there was any TV fakery, it's not honest.
I know.
But the thing is, if somebody's not honest, if they haven't had a good education, what do
Honesty
you
has
do?
nothing to do with education.
No, but when
you
I'm
have
saying,
to learn to lie. You have to be taught to lie.
okay, so you're saying honesty is the most natural state.
Yes.
So education could probably more threaten honesty.
Yes.
So what do you?
Well, education, if it is used improperly,
Right.
and
Right.
it's
Right.
being
Right.
used improperly right now.
I know. So what do you do when you encounter somebody who's been miseducated?
You talk to them and you try. You can only do so much, though.
Right. Wow. Thank you. Anything more you want to?
Well, sometimes it's hard to convince someone that they have misinformation. I spent a great deal of time protesting the very first Gulf War, and I got beat up for that because they thought it was just unacceptable. Here, they felt the United States is being attacked, and here I'm against the first Gulf War. Not so, and you have conscientious objectors and so on who suffered the same thing.
Right.
And it sometimes, and until recently, it was very, very difficult to talk against the government of the United States.
Now
it's easy.
Now it's fashionable, but what my concern is, my research shows me that we have a weapons industry and a drugs industry, and not drugs, pharmaceuticals, drugs like the illegal drugs, and it has a lot of cash flowing around the world, and these guys float around on yachts, and they're multi-billionaires, and they can buy off media for $50 million, and in that case, the government is not strong enough. That's why I loved what Gloria was saying from the control room. You have to be very clear what you mean when you talk about the government, because it is painful to think that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Again, as I said in the control room, there is nothing wrong with government. It's simply the people who are running the government right now. Government, if it is run by human beings, is necessary.
Or human beings that haven't been miseducated, that do have honesty and do have these qualities.
Honest human beings,
Yeah.
or people who care about other
Right.
people.
And
But first of all, when this administration took over, they had a bloodless coup. They took over because they stole the election, number one. And also, I'm losing my track of thought.
But this administration you were indicating came since World War II. Is this an extension of that one?
Is it an extension? Well, you could say that the same people who are running the country today, their grandfathers and their family, it's an extension. It's the same family that started World War II. Mm-hmm. And they're doing and using the same exact tools that the family used back then and their grandparents did.
I'm striving to create connections of empathy with them. I want them to see the work that we're doing.
With greed?
Well, I mean, when you say if someone's dishonest, you work with them. Why not work with them?
You attempt to.
You attempt to. That's
But
that's all we can do, right?
Some people are beyond that.
Well, what would your solution be, to kill them?
No, the solution would be that they get a taste of what they've made everyone else accept, so that they realize what they do wrong, for them to live the way the people are living who they have robbed from.
You know,
That they be forced to live the way the people that they look down on live. That's what they should, that would be.
If there is a God in heaven, you'd think he would
Then
let
they would learn. They're not going to learn by, and
I think they would learn. I think, just like you say, it's nice to help people. It makes you feel good. If they can't help us, they're being denied an opportunity to feel good. I think we're worth helping. Or I think we don't need help. We can call upon ourselves to get the power to figure things out, to say, we want our government back.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be patriotic. We
Well,
believe
you
in the
have
Constitution.
to stand up and fight for that. You can't let other people do it for you.
But I think that's what we're doing right now. We're doing that
No,
right
you're
now.
not.
You don't think
No,
producing this show
always
and helping
talking
people?
doesn't do anything.
Well, I agree.
And talking doesn't end wars.
But what does?
Over the years in history, the only thing that had gone in and really ended a war and changed things was when they fought it out. I'm not proposing that we go to war or do things, but history, the only way things became leveled out was after the people who were in control and created the situation were removed. Whichever way they had to be
But
removed.
some claim that those special interests were behind both sides, and no matter who won or who lost, they still won.
By the way, I don't want you to put what I just said
Yeah.
in there because
Yeah.
I'm setting myself up
Yeah.
because
I won't put that last part. We can wrap it up.
Not actually. That's my fantasy of making Giuliani and Bush live on $45,000 a year.
Why don't you do a closing, Paula?
Okay. This is Paula, Gloria, and this has been another excursion farther down the rabbit hole. We've gone deeply into the topic, I guess, of human greed, and to see if we can develop a change of heart. That's always the hope. And I think examples like Gloria being such an incredible volunteer here at Public Access, she gets nothing in return except the satisfaction of helping others.
that's not nothing. That's
I
a
know,
lot.
I know.
That's a lot.
I know, but no matter what their message is, you know, whether you agree or don't agree with them, you believe in free speech. And Josh Volinski also has a show, the Josh Volinski Show. So thank you for joining me.
Can we get some closing statements from Gloria and Josh?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Gloria?
Closing statements.
About your